Hello and welcome to Two Peas in a Pod, parenting podcast from me, Sam Evans.
And me, Aaron Herskovitz.
A philosopher and a psychologist, two rabbis, all in one pod. It's quite a lot of peas, really. And today we're doing kind of a bumper bonus episode to wrap up our second season of podcasts. And we're going to be talking about a broader topic, just delving into insights we may both have had, or experiences or even challenges we may both have had parenting over the summer. So, Aaron, what have you been doing this summer? What have your kids been doing?
They've been up to a lot of different things. It's interesting, I don't know. I think most listeners are from Israel, so they probably have similar expectations. But the summers are so different here as opposed to, remember, growing up in Chutz La'aretz. It's, on the one hand, it's very defined, right? In other words, that the June 30th is the last day of school. September 1st is the first day of school.
May? It's 1st of September. Yeah.
Except for high school, right? It's June, I think it's 21st. I don't know. This was our first year, so still internalizing that. And then there's also, it took us like 3 or 4 years to realize that there's a certain outline, I guess. That's not the word, but the structure to the summer for the younger kids, at least. For the older kids, everything is just hefker. It's June 21st comes, and then you're on your own, right? In other words, there are all sorts of programs, but you have to,
find them. You have to.
Yeah. So for the younger kids, it's like there's 3 weeks where you have, in a semi-organized program run by the school in the city. And then there's like extra programs run by all sorts of individuals and groups that you can also pick. I mean, the first session also, you have those options. And then come the last 2 weeks of August, there's nothing. It's done, right? But then you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do, right? So but the summers, you're very much with the kids, and it's hard because, I know for us, like we're still working, but it's a fun time. I mean, I guess it's a mix for us. I don't know how you're experiencing it, but I guess I'd say, my first response to your question is like, it's a mix of all these different opportunities to, interact with the kids in different ways, especially when we're hopefully taking some time off at the end of August to really spend more time with them. But even, during the summer, like the opportunity to interact with them in a different way, to have different experiences with them. Let's say Fridays, there's not usually anything going on. So then, as opposed to in the past where like Friday is just about getting ready for Shabbat. So we've been trying to do a little bit more with them on Fridays, but it's also hard. Like the challenge of, trying to maintain work and routine and also be even more of a present parent than usual.
Yeah, when there's no work or routine for your kids, but work and routine might continue for you. And then there's a kind of disconnect between the parenting unit and the kids unit, because the kids unit is on leave and the parents unit might still be working. When you said it's fun, was that you just convincing yourself as you said it, or is it fun?
It is fun. I do enjoy the summer. I'm, of two minds. There's this part of me that's okay. I can't wait for the routine to get back, but I do enjoy spending time with my kids.
That's nice.
And also there's like really nice parts of it too, in terms of being able to help them with sorts of things. I told my kids at the beginning of the summer, I have 2 goals in terms of what I want to help them with this summer is to move them all along the path of learning to swim, and also in terms of riding a bike. Because this is, one of the biggest guilt experiences I'm dealing with as a parent is feeling like I've abdicated my parental, maybe my fatherly obligations.
Duties.
In terms of teaching them how to ride a bike, especially with the older ones. So those are my 2 stated missions. I'm doing a better job of making sure that they're learning to swim, but want to try and get that biking in too.
Yeah, I've discovered that you want to get them riding a bike before they're old enough to reason with you about why it's not important to ride bikes. We did that with our 2 youngest, but our oldest is, why would I need to do that?
Yeah. I mean, he's right also. I feel I was talking to Shir about it recently in terms of some of the kids that I was like, I don't really, whatever, different personalities, but I'm like, I don't see them wanting to go ahead and ride a bike. I know that they want to learn how to, and want to be able to do so. And I think that's also really important in general, right? Giving, having there's a few people that I meet with in the clinic who can't drive, and we talk about that too. It just, that like I was actually speaking to one recently about how, I won't actually be driving anymore. There's not like places that I want to go that I can't go now. And I probably am going to, just as frequently walk, take public transportation, ride my bike, whatever it is. But the feeling that I could, how important that is.
Yeah.
But I'm like, so should we like buy a bike for them if they're not going to be using it?
They're never going to do it, but certainly could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of been, yeah.
For me, this summer's a weird one because for the last few years, including this year, I go away for a lot of the summer. I've been away and I will have been away for the best part of a month. I'm currently in Australia as we're recording this, and you're back home in Israel.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wait, no.
Did you not know?
I was just expecting our listeners' surprise.
Yeah. It's really far away, Australia. It's really far.
And they have internet. Wow. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
This convict colony.
What's that like for you being so far away?
It's tough. It's really tough. And I'll tell you, I've had two kind of parental experiences through the summer. One is before I went to Australia, we all went to England. And I really did enjoy, and I think more than I have in previous years, sharing my childhood home and my childhood haunts, so to speak, with my kids. Like showing them around where I grew up and enjoying my parents, enjoying my kids. That's really lovely. And it's something that I think a lot of Olim, a lot of immigrants to Israel will recognize. If you're raising your kids far away from your parents, those times in the summer, where you manage to get back together again, it's really special. And I really enjoyed it. And my kids were old enough, I think, to better appreciate the significance of what it means to be in their dad's childhood home and whatever. And I enjoyed it. And we showed them really.
It sounds like there's a lot of connection and continuity in that type of experience.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful experience. Like in taking my kids to the shul that I davened in, my dad davened in, my grandparents davened in. Like it's special.
Wow.
And then going to London with the kids. I grew up in Leicester in England, in case our listeners are wondering. But then we took the kids to London. Leicester, spelt Leicester, in case you ever need to know. But then we took the kids to London, and there's such cool things to do in London, and we had a great day. Well, I'm looking at it with rose-tinted glasses because I'm looking back on it. We had a day when we walked a long way around the banks of the Thames River, and we took the kids to Tate Modern, and they saw lots of really cool things, and near Parliament or whatever. I'm remembering it as a joyous day. But actually, one of the kids was like, "Can we go home? Can we go all the way?" I'm not remembering that, And it's funny. Here's a parenting tip. I've really discovered that when it comes to family outings or family trips, family experiences, very often your children will remember it the way you framed it for them when you put them to bed that night, like young children, right?
Yeah.
So one of our kids was complaining the entire way, but enjoyed the end of it. And then when we went to bed that night, we talked about what we'd done. Wasn't that a great day? And they're like, yeah, that was a great day. So even me, it's worked on me because I'm remembering it now as being a great day.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the kids we had to drag from pillar to post.
That's beautiful. I mean, and that's what you think that their memory in the future is going to be of the day.
I think their memory of the day will be a pleasant one, will be a positive one because of the way you frame it at the end of the day. And, you recap, what did we do today?
It's really nice to, to be touching base with them before you go to sleep, which I think is, probably important year round.
Yeah.
But definitely when there's special things going on, I think that's also maybe something more in the summer that it can be a little bit more relaxed in terms of the beginnings of the days, the ends of the days, and, to open yourself up to be more present with the kids and those moments. It's really great. Yeah.
Philosophically speaking, I'd say there's an interesting point here about how when you frame the day at the end of the day and how that can affect the way you remember it is a lot of the stuff I've been teaching in Australia at the moment from Hasidut has this notion that a lot of the experiences we have, they mean what we end up interpreting them to mean. Their meaning is somehow underdetermined and relies on us to, the way we package it is the way it is, constitutes what it will come to mean for us. It's interesting philosophically and psychologically.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that overlaps a lot in terms of like narrative therapy, in terms of the way that you decide to frame your different experiences, affecting also how you experience it emotionally in the future. And, and I think that in terms of your description of, that experience of dragging a child from place to place and complaining the whole time, I was thinking about how, definitely been in situations like that too, probably both as a child and as a parent, and about how so difficult it can be as a parent to hear that, because, you want things to be positive. You want them to enjoy. You're taking time out and investing in order for it to be special. And there's this voice in your head that's saying, I can't believe I took him here. It would have been why did we leave, Israel?
Stayed at home.
Left him at home. They would just have been just as happy in front of it to you. Why am I doing this, right? And it's so tempting to, to let out that voice, right? And say, well, if you don't appreciate it, I'm not taking you. In other words, to let, to vent a little bit of this frustration, and how important it can be to use like all of our regulatory capabilities to, to calm ourselves down and recognize the fact that, this is the way that kids deal with difficulty.
Yeah.
Is by venting and letting it out and complaining. And he's tired, right? It's not easy. And he's not able to regulate him, or sorry,
whoever that might be.
Right. But they are not able to regulate themselves as well. So I need to try and do that.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. Like I've, definitely not always been successful at that for sure. And it's funny also for me when it's like the opposite way, when like in the car on the way home from a teal with the kids, and it was okay, it was nice, whatever. And the kids are like, oh my God, that was the best day ever. And I was like, what? Like we didn't do anything. I remember there was we went to Moshav near Netanya and went for a walk, in nature, whatever. It wasn't really not. And all these things went wrong along the way between what I had planned and what it ended up being. But like for them, it was amazing because it had just rained. And I saw that there was this like shortcut to get from one place. Waze was telling me to go like all the way around these like fields. But I saw like looking on, I think Google Maps or something, that it was saying like, there's this like path that you go, it'll take 15 minutes less. So I said, okay, let's do that. And we were like driving in these fields and all these like paths. And I get to this like little, the path like goes down a little bit and then up. And because it had just rained, there was like water there. And it wasn't dangerous. It was still raining. Right. So I got out of the car and checked with the stick to see how it was. And I was like, kids, we're going to be driving through it. And they were like freaking out, like so excited and nervous when whatever. And, our daughter took a video of us going through, and like that for them was like the highlight. This, silly little moment of driving through the street.
Yeah. So then the next act of the summer for me after going to England has been this going to Australia for a long time. And there are two things I want to share with you and the listeners about my experiences in Australia that quite striking. So what I do here, you all know that professionally I'm an academic and I teach at university. But over the summers, for the last few years, I've struck up this relationship with a high school in Australia. And I come because it's the winter over here. And while we're on our summer break, they're still just at school in the middle of the winter. And I come out here and I do kind of philosophy for kids, teaching kids in a Jewish high school, trying to inspire kids around Torah, Judaism, and Jewish philosophy. And one of the things that I don't mean to sound like a downer, but I think we can all learn a lot from it. So I'm going to share it with you. Is that there are some respects in which I feel I'm a much better Jewish educator for other people's children than I am for my own. And I share that with you candidly. But what's really interesting is I mentioned it to a few of the educators in the school, and they were all like, yeah, we know what you mean. We know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth unpacking, why that might be. Because I think sometimes when you're dealing with other people's children and their problems and their crises of faith and their levels of frumkeit and their issues, you can come at it not dispassionately. That's the wrong word, because that makes it sound like I don't care. I care about these kids. I care about these kids a lot. But I'm just not bringing any of my own baggage. And I'm not...
Yeah.
I'll win some, I'll lose some, I'll convince some, I won't convince others. And somehow that frees me, I think, to be much more effective than when I'm confronting similar issues with my own kids. And it was,
So that distance you think does still help? Is that what you're
yeah, I don't know.
distance or something else?
Yeah, distance. And also, I think the stakes are so high when it's our own kids. Sometimes we're so worried about either making the wrong move or they're so close to us and there's no mystique, there's no mystery, they know you inside out, right? Whereas a student at school might be really intrigued by you, and you might be able to kind of cultivate their interest in what you have to say. That I think is,
Yeah.
to a certain degree, a function of the fact that they don't know you inside out and that they only see a certain side of you,
Right.
and you can almost exploit that to the benefit of this kid's education, because
Yeah.
you've triggered their interest. My kids aren't interested in what I have to say about anything, because I'm their
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah. But I think also in terms of from your perspective too. In other words, you can be, for 45 minutes a day or an hour a
Yeah,
day, or
yeah,
each child 5 days a week, right? You can, if that was what the parenting obligation was that we had, also that might also be easier, right? But it's not about that; it's about the
yeah,
totality and the
yeah,
experience. Also. So it
yeah.
makes it a
So
lot more
maybe the answer is
challenging.
we should just see our children. We should just see our children for 45 minutes a week, and then we'd be excellent. you know?
So we might be excellent
Yeah,
educators, but I don't know if we'd be excellent parents also, because that's
that's it.
total experience is it makes maybe doesn't make it does make things more challenging in certain ways, but it also makes things potentially more warm, authentic,
Yeah,
long lasting, types of relationships that we have. Or even if we have very impressive and wonderful teachers, the relationship is not usually is not the same as
yeah.
with
And I think
parents.
that's a really beautiful point. I think it's a really beautiful point. I just want to sit on it for a moment. So you're saying, yeah, if you only saw your children for 45 minutes a week and you spend that 45 minutes a week on education, you might be a much better educator for your children, but you wouldn't be a better parent.
Yeah.
And parenting is, education is only one facet of this really complex beast called parenthood. I think that's really important. you know the other insight I wanted to share with people from Australia, just as we're going, I'm working
I
with
have
a
a question
really
for you after too.
okay
So
okay but I'm
I
working
really,
with a really gifted educator called Chaim Cowan. Shout out to him, Rabbi Dr. Chaim Cowan. He's a really lovely guy and works at Yavne College, where I've been based. And most of my classes, and I do classes and tishes and one-on-one interviews with kids, it's all been great, really has. There was one class I gave that was a complete flunk, completely, it just didn't register with the kids. It was just a dud. And we all have that. Most teachers have that. I shouldn't say we all, but most teachers have that. And yet it was partly a dud because some of the kids in the room were being so rude. Like, if they were adults, how can they were so rude, like talking over me and not looking at me, picking their noses,
it's happened. It happens.
so rude. And at one point, I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to storm out the room and just slam the door. I'm like, you barbarians! And please don't get the impression that Yavna is full of barbarians. It's a wonderful school that I really enjoy teaching at. But Chaim Cowan says something so useful to me, and you reminded me of it when you talked about our regulating ourselves. And he basically says that when that happens, he catches himself and he reminds himself these people are actually children. Yes, it would be rude if they were adults, but they're not fully baked yet. They're still becoming adults. And though the behavior is rude, it doesn't reflect on them in the way it would reflect upon adults. They're not there yet. And it allowed him not to take it allows that moment of reflection allows him not to take it personally, and then is able to continue, with the right energy rather than the one that I had, which is kind of wanting to either curl up and cry or storm out and slam the door. And I think that's useful. I think that's useful in parenting as well. Like sometimes we just need to stop and take a breath and remember that they're children.
For sure. And I think that's a super effective tool at helping us look at things from a different perspective. Remembering they're children. In other words, and I think of it in maybe in three ways, but I'll focus on two in terms of, like in terms of the gap between present and future, realizing, okay, I'm going to try to help them to get through this, but they're not going to be this way when they're 20 and 30, hopefully. Right. Right. And part of my role is to help them slowly get. Yeah. But it's not an overnight or, in the moment type of thing, but it's a lifelong process. And sometimes also looking back in the past when, a child's having like a difficulty and I say, consider myself, I remember, you know what? 3 years ago, this was a lot harder for them, like relative, it's really difficult and frustrating for them. But, in the past, this was even more difficult.
Yeah, that's useful.
And I try and exaggerate like what it used to be also to make it easier. All right.
You play tricks on yourself. Yeah, but I see.
Yeah. Oh, remember, it was horrible. But our children are always growing. And that's something also, when meeting with parents too, I try and help them, often switch their focus, not to distract them, but like to help reflect on the process of parenting and developing.
Because they are mid-development, they are mid-process. What you have is not the finished article,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that was so with adults as well. If only we could recapture that about ourselves and to be as open as children are to growing.
We are. What do you mean?
We are. But
there's a wonderful article.
Yeah.
That I was going to say I'm going to share with you, but I might not actually. About how,
Don't.
just like, I can't find where I go. But I think it was written by one of my teachers, Professor Esther Cohen, about how our parenting also grows and develops over time. I think maybe we spoke about it in one of the episodes too, about how, the type of parent that we are at the beginning, the type of parent that we are changes, not just because our children get to different stages in life, although that's part of it, but also in terms of our own ability. Like I think I would like to believe that my ability to regulate myself with my youngest children is more developed than it was when my oldest was at their age. And I think that I see that also.
Our children don't have the same parents, because the first child doesn't have the parents the second child had, and likewise, because we grow. So you're right, and that's good, and it's natural. Yeah.
My question to you, we might be needing to end soon, but my question to you is, how are you trying to stay in touch with your kids with a 7-hour time difference?
It's really hard, and each kid needs their own way of keeping in touch. One of them, voicemail, is enough. And
we get voice notes back and
forth? We each send voice notes back and forth, and we get a sense of what the other one's doing. One of my kids really wants to talk with me, so I need to find a time, despite the 7-hour time, whenever we can have a face-to-face WhatsApp chat, but that's doable and nice. At the end of my day, it's the beginning of, towards the beginning of their day, and it's nice. Truth be told is that one of our kids almost would find it more painful and disruptive to hear from me too much. And it's better that I get constant updates from Gabby about how they're doing than my being in touch too often with them, because it's upsetting for them, actually, my not being there.
Yeah.
And actually it certain types of contact remind them that I'm not there more than making it, so each kid's different. And
is that something they're able to verbalize as well, or it's more?
Yes, I think so. But I'm talking about the youngest of our 3 kids. So we might expect less in terms of their ability to verbalize that. But to a certain extent, it's explicit. Yeah.
It could be really hard, for kids in terms of having the absence be emphasized for them. Like it's easier to ignore it and have it, not.
Well, that's healthy. What do you think?
I wanted to share another story, but I'm not sharing this story to contradict your decision.
No.
But I think it's just another thing to keep in mind too. And I think it does, line up with what you're sharing. I think it's also, again, Professor Esther Cohen sharing about once these parents that were meeting with her, that they went away on some trip. I think the two of them, and maybe it's the grandparents that were taking care of their very young child or children. And she asked them, like, oh, how did you keep in touch when you were away? And they said, well, we did it. And she said, you did it? What do you mean? So yeah, what we did, well, one of the first couple of days we called, we did a video chat. And in my head, I don't know the actual story, but in my head, it was like a 4 or 5-year-old was like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to Abba, probably in less words. And then we said, fine, if you don't want to talk, it's okay. We don't need to. And then so we just didn't call again, right? Because that's what they said. They don't want to. She said, and she tried, they tried to explain to the parents that sometimes that type of behavior from a child is like an attempt also to regain a sense of control. In other words, it's very painful for them if their parents aren't there. One potential reaction of theirs of, no, I'm deciding that I don't want to talk to you, is, that they're trying to go from being victim to being the aggressor.
In control.
Saying, no, I don't want to talk to you. But that also is important for them. In other words, that then not calling, even though it's a fulfillment of their desire, of their expressed desire to not talk to the parents, it's actually just heightening the feeling of abandonment and lack of connection. But
I don't think that's exactly the situation I'm in. But
no, for sure. I don't think it's the same. But I think that it gets to the larger question of, in terms of getting that right balance as parents, when our kids are dealing with negative emotions, right? One of the episodes from this season, in terms of in which situations do we want to try and help them avoid those situations where those negative emotions maybe become greater or more intense or more present for them, and at what points do we want to let them know, hey, it's hard, but negative emotions are a part of life, a part of,
let's articulate it.
I don't think it's easy to know which situation is oh, okay, so my kid is a little bit anxious, so I'm gonna this summer every week do another extreme sport with them. I don't have to do that.
No,
but I think it's a tricky question.
I've been finding it hard, and I miss them as well. For me, from my point of view, I just miss them.
How much longer? When are you coming back again? Next week.
I'm coming back next week. But I'll be back before Shabbat next week. I mean, a good portion of that time will just be spent getting back. It's so far away. Yeah. Anyway,
sure.
Yeah. So, and then are you going to be going away with the kids when you're able to take some time off work?
Yeah, we have some activities lined up.
That's nice.
Should be really fun.
Special. And then you'll really be able to, because we spoke at the beginning about the kind of out of jointness when parents are in full-time work and kids are off school. But then when you're all off, you'll have that you'll be in sync with one another, and I hope you'll really be able to enjoy each other.
I'm doing it like weirdly, like taking off like between 1 and 3 days each time. So hopefully it's not too discombobulated.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Well, I hope all of our listeners are enjoying their summers, or indeed, if they are in Australia, South Africa, or anywhere else in the Southern Hemisphere, their winters. And we'll see you next season.
This is the end of season 2, right?
I beg your pardon?
Did you mention at the beginning this is the end of season 2?
Yeah, this is kind of a bumper bonus at the end of season 2, and we're looking forward already to season 3. Actually, we promised at the beginning of season 2 that we'd have guests. We had a guest, but in season 3, people will have more. And
God willing. God willing.
All right.
Have a good rest of the summer, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.